I'm Gavin, and this is MLS Fantasy Picks. Before we get into round 17 picks, here's a quick round 16 recap. A pretty uneventful week this week, which was expected. I ended with 55 points for round 16. I had a week rank of 1,063, and my overall rank is now 42. My budget increased from $164.9 million to $166 million. What went right? Heel, Mendy put up some solid scores, and Totland at least got me a clean sheet. What went wrong? I didn't keep Ivicic's score after the first half, though that would have been a good play. I would have at least got 5 more points. Either way, not an awful week. No one really popped off or anything, but that was really expected. Alright, so let's take a look at the MLS Fantasy Picks leagues. MLS Fantasy Picks Open League, shout out to It's Not Gonna Get Messy with 74 points. Some clean sheets, and Captain Heel put up some good numbers. And I won't even bother showing, but looking back at the head-to-head league, it's still the same 3 teams fighting for the top spot with 48 points. Same thing as last week. Alright, let's get into round 17. As always, getting started with key considerations for the round. So some big changes coming this summer, at least for the next few weeks, as there are the Copa 2024 and Euro 2024 tournaments taking place. So a lot of international teams will be playing, and a lot of players have been called up. So this is a bit different than the last week. So last week for MLS Fantasy, there are just some international friendlies. So some players may be coming back even though they were away for international duty last week. So just wanted to call that out. Also, I will be going through each matchup this week, calling out the main, missing players from each team. I'm not going to be doing this all the time as it took a good amount of time, but I thought it would be helpful just to see, are there any key players missing that may impact, some fantasy decisions that we may be making, similar to how Minnesota was missing so many guys last week. Also, just to note, I may have missed some guys on these lists as I just got them from an article a few days ago, so let me know in the comments if I've missed any call-ups. Also, I know the U.S. Olympic team is playing in a friendly this week, though I don't know if that'll impact their availability this week, so players like a Jack McGlynn or a John Tolkien, keep an eye out if they're starting this weekend. Okay, so enough for the national tournaments. Team that's on a bye is Portland. Be sure to use them for any auto-roos or switcheroos that you might be doing. Then even outside of all of this, there's still injuries, reds, and yellows to keep out or keep a watch for. And I feel like the main red was Bernadeschi a couple weeks ago, so he'll be out this week. But as always, check the MLS disciplinary summary and their injury report that they share, before the match day, starting on Friday and Saturday this week. Okay, let's hop into each matchup and who's going to be missing. Alright, so I won't be spending too much time on each of these slides, but feel free to, pause the video and go back, jump around just to see, who's missing, who's in and out. But I just thought it'd be helpful just to see for each matchup who will be missing due to what tournament. So for the Friday game, New York versus Columbus, no major callouts here. New York's missing one of their defenders who they can easily replace. Then looking at Atlanta versus Houston, I feel like one of the main callouts is Lobjanidze for Atlanta. I know he's been a key part of Atlanta's attack, so I don't know if that brings down Almada a bit, and also Schlieff has been playing well. So just a few callouts. I'm still not that high on Atlanta this year anyways. And then Houston, they're missing Carrasquilla. I think they'll still be fine. Then looking at Montreal, I feel like they're missing some key players with, at least on their attack, Chouanier, Lassiter, Piet from a defensive standpoint. So I do like Salt Lake this week. Definitely looking at Chicho as always. Moving on to Charlotte versus DC. No one called up for either of these teams. Charlotte may have a decent defensive option, but I'll get into this during player picks. New England versus the Whitecaps. No major callouts. I think Ivicic will still keep playing for the Revs, who did fine. And no major callouts from the Whitecaps either. Just missing Kubas there. All right, and then for the Red Bull in Nashville. So Cornell and Lewis Morgan will be out, so Forsberg will be back. So I feel like the Red Bull will still be, in decent shape, even though they're missing Morgan. And then Nashville, I feel like Schaffelberg's a bit dangerous on the attack, and Godoy, as well. Not huge on this matchup this week. Maybe a few Red Bull guys. Then looking at Orlando and LAFC. So plenty of guys out for Orlando. Big call out around Torres, Araujo, Galese. I'm not sure about the other two guys that much. I haven't really been keeping up with Orlando. And then from an LAFC side, I don't know if Giroux's really playing yet, but Oliveira's been, pretty big for LAFC. So maybe they're a decent defensive option for LAFC this week. Who knows? It'll be an interesting one. And then looking at the Union in Miami. So I'm not really high on the Union this week. We'll be missing Bueno, Martinez, Gazdag, Lowe. I don't even know who Berdecchio is. But yeah, and then Miami is only going to be missing Messi and Rojas, at least due to international tournaments. Call out here, at least for the next few weeks. So yeah, just wanted to call that out. No major impact. I know Messi is going to be missing. Maybe Suarez will be missing as well. Yeah, going to be an interesting one with all the guys out for this game. And then Toronto versus Chicago. I feel like Toronto is probably going to be missing a few guys due to Reds, due to these call-ups. But then, again, they're playing Chicago, who have not been great this year. Missing Shaqiri, either way, still haven't looked great. Dallas, St. Louis, no big misses this week. Just Hebert out for St. Louis. Bombito is the only main call-out for the Rapids. And then Austin are missing a few guys. Cascante, Pereira, Rubio. Could be a good look this week for Colorado. Galaxy Sporting, no one called up. San Jose, FC Cincinnati. Just Gruezo, I think they're defensive mini for San Jose. So no big call-outs here. And then, yeah, still a few missing for Minnesota. I don't know if that ups Seattle that much. But yeah, just some key guys there to call out. All right, so another new segment that I'm trying out for the weekly videos is this sort of, switcheroo, keeperoo visualization screen. So I try to call out, like, who are the good early matchups for your goalkeepers and defenders, and their late matchups as well. And then also for, like, the attacking side, some midfield forward call-outs that I want to look at for the early games as well as the late games. So purpose of this is, just to give you an idea on the matchups that I like from a keeperoo or switcheroo. These are the early games that I would look at, and then the later games that I want to look at should those, early picks fall through. So not necessarily the matchups that I'm really just looking out for this week. You'll see that as I go through my player picks, but I just wanted to help visualize, like, who are the early games that I like, what are the late games I like, whether it's for an attacking or a defensive switcheroo. So hope this is helpful, but yeah, let's start walking through things. So not a lot of good looks for keepers and defenders this week. I feel like for the front end of a keeperoo or a switcheroo, and if you haven't watched those videos, be sure to go watch. I've got a link. It should be appearing up in the top here in a second or so. And yeah, so Toronto, Charlotte, I feel like have the most decent matchups against Chicago and DC. Chicago, obviously not looking so great this year. DC, hard to tell. They may be without Benteke this week, so maybe that makes Charlotte's defense look a little bit better. And I've also thrown out Salt Lake here as well, since Montreal are missing a few of their attack. So all of these players I would probably look at putting on my bench, maybe like a Gavron or a Kalina or some of the Real Salt Lake defenders as well, keepers as well. And then, yeah, looking at the late side, was not a huge fan of. I'm still probably going to look to do a defensive switcheroo this week. So maybe for my late picks, should these guys fall through, I'll look at a McCarthy or a Fry or who else is there for defense? Reagan or Yoshida. So that's the defensive side. Again, let me know if this is helpful in the comments. Just helps me sort of visualize, what the matchups are looking like. So for the early games, I've called out New York and Columbus, and then Montreal and Salt Lake. So New York and Columbus, you've got Cucho. He is away, so maybe he's a good, for early Friday game. Put him on the bench, see how he does. And then for Salt Lake, maybe you're not too confident. Someone like a Gomez or, Chicho, you'll definitely want to start. But yeah, definitely see how those games go early. And looking at the later games for attackers, maybe you'll look at like a Mihailovic or, Puig isn't someone you'll want to scrub. But then you've got Acosta. Maybe you could put in Espinoza as well and scrub him potentially. But yeah, just wanted to sort of call out some options, visualize some matchups and timings. We'll see if this is helpful. And if not, I'll just scrap it. But yeah, just want to try something else out. All right, now that I've gone through this, let's go through my player picks. Getting started with keepers, premium. Not really recommending everyone. Looking at matchups, didn't really like a lot of the expensive keepers this week. So moving down to standard pricing, as I said before, I like Charlotte at home versus DC for the front end of a keeperoo. They've been decent at home, so I like Kalina. I think he's a good option. Then I've also called out McMath away at Montreal. As I said, Montreal are missing a few of their attackers. Maybe that helps Real Salt Lake's defense. They're away though. McMath's made some errors in the past. Could be a decent flyer. And Lloris, LAFC away at Orlando. It's hard to believe that LAFC have kept so many clean sheets, so that's the reason why I'm calling them out, just because of their recent defensive form. So yeah, in Orlando are missing a few attackers or a few key members of their team, so LAFC could be a decent defensive option this week. And then budget plays I also like are Gavran at home against Chicago. Toronto are pretty decent. I remember they were quite good defensively early on in the season. Maybe they can continue to hold their own against Chicago. A pick I don't like as much, but I need to call out these later games as well for the back end of a keeperoo. I've got Fry at home against Minnesota. I'm sure there's going to be goals, but he's an option. Maybe I like McCarthy a bit more at home against SKC, though LA Galaxy are known to let in some goals as well. So looking at defenders, premium, Kai Wagner, home against Miami. I think Wagner is still on set pieces. He's dangerous on the attack. A lot of players are going to keep picking Wagner. And I've also called out Yoshida. He's a bit expensive. They're at home against SKC. SKC are known to score, but they're a decent late option if you're looking for some mini switcheroos. Looking at standard pricing, I've also called out Alba away at Philly. I feel like Alba will probably continue to be involved in the attack even without Messi. Also Suarez will definitely step up and help out, and Philly are missing a quite good amount of players this week. Then taking a look at Lennon at home against Houston. I'm still not a huge fan of Atlanta, so he's a bit of a stretch pick, but maybe, picks it up this week. Then I've also got Malanda at home against DC. Could be a good bench option, if you do like those Charlotte clean sheet chances. And then another flyer pick is Anelli away at Montreal. He's a center defensive midi listed as a defender in the game. So yeah, he did play pretty well and early in the season offensively. Montreal are missing some guys. Maybe Anelli picks up a good amount of points this week. Then I've also called out, from a budget standpoint, any Toronto home defender. So whoever's starting, they're at home against Chicago. I still like, I like Toronto's chances this week for a clean sheet. Then a bit of a flyer pick, an LAFC defender like Campos away at Orlando. LAFC, like I said, have held up some clean sheets, so maybe they're a decent defensive option this week. And looking at midfielders, premium, Ricky Puig at home against SKC. I feel like Ricky's an easy pick this week. Everybody should probably have him. I don't really need to explain why. Acosta away at San Jose. Acosta is still a beast in terms of fantasy and just MLS in general. Like I said, they're away at San Jose. I feel like Acosta is a good pick this week. Plenty of midfielders to choose from. I've also got Heel at home against Vancouver. He had a good score last week. Let's see if he can keep in his good MLS fantasy form. Same game. Ryan Gauld also in good form away at New England, who have been known to let in some goals. Almada at home against Houston. Not my favorite pick. I've not been a huge Almada fan, but yeah, he could step up. Moving on to standard pricing, I do like Santi this week. They are playing a tough Columbus squad. Maybe they're feeling a bit better after their loss in Mexico. Very tough to see. But yeah, I still like Santi. He's been in good form. NYCFC are looking good. I feel like he could be a good option, at least as a bench play. And then I've also called out Forsberg at home against Nashville. He'll be missing, or the Red Bull will be missing Morgan, so at least you don't have to worry about picking the right midfielder there. And then I do like Mihailovic at home against Austin. Colorado are looking good, and look at Mihailovic's scores the past few weeks. I think he's a decent play this week. And then Hani away at Red Bull New York. I feel like Hani's also coming into some good form, and the Red Bull aren't missing too many players, so this could be a good matchup. And then another fun pick, I've also got Gomez away at Montreal. I like Real Salt Lake this week just because Montreal haven't looked great and they're missing some of their key players. Then moving down to budget, I also like Leuven away at Dallas. I feel like he's also coming into, how he used to play previously before he was out for a while. And they're playing Dallas, who, aren't anything special this year. Speaking of Dallas, Iramendi, he played great last week. Let's see if he can keep up his good form at home against St. Louis. And looking at forwards, I feel like forwards were a bit tough this week. Probably have a lot of the same forwards, but let's see. Premium, you got to go with Chicho this week. They're away at Montreal. Montreal are missing some guys. One I am on the fence about is Bouanga. I think he had a decent away score a couple of weeks ago, and they are playing Orlando, so he could be a decent option this week. I also like Peck. LA Galaxy are home against SKC. Again, though, with the Galaxy, it's hard to tell. Will it be Peck? Will it be Paintsil? Will it be Jovic? So yeah, you got to just hope that you pick the right guy for the week. And then I do like Cucho away at NYCFC. If anything, he's also a decent bench play as they're playing early with the Friday game. And then as I said with Jovic, also a good option at home against SKC. And then if you want to go for him, though he hasn't played great in the last couple of games, is Navarro at home against Austin. And then a bit of a flyer budget pick, Liel Abada at home against DC. I feel like he's been, very close to scoring plenty of times. And yeah, he's dangerous on that attack. So I do like Abada as sort of a flyer budget play this week. And finishing off with captains, who else but Ricky Puig. I like Ricky this week. He's got a good matchup, and the Galaxy are at home. If you don't like Ricky, Costa, also a decent matchup, though they are away at San Jose. If you don't like either of those guys, Chicho, also a great pick, away at Montreal. All right, so that wraps up this week's video. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope it was helpful. Again, leave some comments. Let me know if I missed anyone on those international call-ups, and if the new format was kind of helpful with the early and late game switcheroos. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting week with all of the players missing, but that's what makes MLS Fantasy so fun, so exciting. As always, good luck everyone.